Hello and welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today I'm going to be sharing the top 10 eyeshadow palettes that I am most excited to reach for this coming fall. Now, I am such a fall lover. I'm just so excited as always for the season, but I am also such a palette girl. Even though they've sort of declined in popularity in recent years, I am still such a palette lover. So I definitely have some that I am the most excited to reach for. When I think of fall tones, I definitely think of those warm toasty looks. I think of a lot of green. I think sort of getting a little bit more into grungier tones as well. So that's kind of what comes to mind for me when it comes to fall. So I have pulled 10 palettes that I love for the quality, for the color story. So I've tried to pull a mix of older and newer palettes, and the first one is from Natasha Denona. This is the mini Gloom palette. I did review this one quite recently, and I just think it's beautiful. I'm somewhat thrown off by the pink in here because I don't necessarily feel like it flows with the greens in this palette as well as I would like it to, but if you do cover up that pink, you have a very basic green palette. So I can definitely work with this, and the pink does have its place. I think it looks really pretty when you create a look using these green shades and then just pop the pink as a pop of brightness on the inner corner. I think that looks really pretty. Natasha doesn't have any of her special formulas in here. You're just getting mattes and metallics. But I think what makes this special is the way she's done the matte shadows. So you do get this kind of dusty olive green, but then you do get a brown to sort of anchor everything down. And when it comes to browns and greens, if the brown isn't formulated just right, it can look very muddy when paired with the greens. But if the brown has a bit of that sort of olivey undertone, it will flow so beautifully. It's a very fine line, but she has nailed it with this shade. I think everything in here flows so well together, and if you love a good green look, this is a great palette going into fall. I do really wear greens the very most in the fall. I think they're beautiful. Speaking of staple green palettes, I've pulled the Charlotte Tilbury Beautifying Eye Trends Emerald Effect palette. Now, Charlotte Tilbury did come out with these earlier this year, and there was a lot of criticism based on the packaging because it does have this sort of clear lid here. The packaging doesn't feel as expensive as her packaging typically does. However, I don't actually mind because I did pick up multiple, so it is kind of nice to just sort of see the color story you're reaching for. I really like these palettes and I really love the quality of them. I love how she's got these mattes in here. She's got these metallics, but she also has these shades that she calls Diamond Dimension, and they are so incredibly high shine metallic foiled shades that are just so beautiful and reflective. I absolutely love them. And I love this particular color story because you get the greens, but you also get some of these browns. You get a beautiful gold up here. So it's just this perfect balanced palette, and she has absolutely nailed these browns with that sort of more olivey undertone. This is really just a deep brown, but these two browns up here, they have that perfect undertone that meshes so well with the rest of these shades. She did such a good job with the color curation of this one, and I love this because we get those more deeper green tones, some of these forest greens. You do get this bright pop here as well, but you just get these really kind of deep, grungy, very fall-esque kind of greens to me. So I am excited to reach for this one. Again, I love the formula and quality of these. So this color story, I'm very excited about. And I did pull out another one of her Beautifying Eye Trends palettes. I pulled out Sensual Sunset. Now this one is a very warm, very toasty palette. So if I'm creating some of those warmer, smokier, just very toasty, cozy looks, this is such a good one to reach for. Again, we have these mattes and metallics, and then these two shades on the bottom are those Diamond Dimension shades that are just out of this world reflective. This one is almost a little bit too red, warm leaning for me, but otherwise the rest of the shades in this palette are just stunning. This is one that is of course great all year round because it is a warm eyeshadow palette, but going into fall especially, I am so excited for this one. The next palette is from Too Faced, and this is their Aptly in Love palette. Now this was their fall launch for last year, and Their fall launches and their tin packaging is typically some of their absolute best quality. I did really enjoy the quality of this one. This definitely does have that sort of appley caramelly scent to it. To me, it's a little bit strong, but I didn't necessarily mind it. I don't think you can get this anymore, but I really liked this one. Now, I typically like their fall launches, but this one I felt like was especially good because typically these palettes are browns and pinks with the occasional pop of color in them just to make them different. But I feel like last year they did a really nice job of having those browns and greens that we do like and gravitate toward, but they added in the greens and reds really well to represent the theme of the palette. And I love that we have some of these very warm goldish, almost yellow tones in here as well. And then we have this nicer balance of some softer shades. The red in here is actually very wearable and it's really balanced out by these mattes. I think they anchored this red really well also. But the red in here is actually beautiful. I felt like there wasn't one dud in this entire palette, and that is not typical for these Too Faced palettes, especially when they throw in a colorful shade. I feel like there is usually a shade that is a bit of a dud. I just didn't feel that with this. So I definitely do see the apple orchard vibes from this palette. It gives me that cozy fall-esque type of feeling. I do look at this and think apples, apple pie, olive, warm, cozy, bonfire. I think of all of that when I look at this palette. So I do think they did a really nice job on this one. I really liked the theme as well. And I like that they sort of broke away from just pumpkin themes. I thought this was really nice. And I don't think I've seen their fall palette for this year. I don't think they've come out with one yet, if they're coming out with one at all, but I really loved this one and I'm excited to reach for it. Next is the palette I'm wearing today, and this is from Glamlight. This is their Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1 palette in Team Jacob. So they did come out with these, I believe, around the beginning of this year. They had a Team Edward palette and a Team Jacob palette. The Team Jacob palette is very fall leaning, but it was the more neutral option, whereas the Team Edward palette had a lot more reds and grays in it. I think, and probably some ambers, but this one is just, this is beautiful. This one is that gorgeous mix of mattes and then high shine metallics. Like I said, I am wearing it today and I love how this look comes together. The Glamlight formula is fantastic. This is the first time I ever tried their formula and I absolutely love it. This is incredible. The mattes are, of course, very buttery, very pigmented, easy to work with, very blendable, but the metallics are so incredibly shiny, but they're not flaky, they're not chunky, they're not overly texture enhancing. They're really pretty. And I was so impressed the first time I stuck my fingers in these metallics. These shimmers are so smooth and buttery, and that is very unusual for a shimmer, but this is beautiful. What a fantastic formula. But getting into the actual color story, why it reminds me of fall, when I first got this, I initially thought this is going to be such a staple in the fall. We have a couple of these more cool tone gray shades. We have some browns, we have some toastier shades. We also have a gorgeous set of green shades, and they have thrown in this sort of matte green, this deep matte green here, but then also this very olivey toned brown. So everything is just anchored beautifully. I am so excited to create a green look with this one. The most common look I create with this palette, I go in with this shade right here, and then I deepen it with this one, and then I go in with this shade. And I think they're so beautiful. This shade used to say Jacob, but I've of course worn it down. I just love this palette, the formula. It's so good, and I will absolutely be reaching for this so often. I can't wait to see what they come out with next in the Twilight saga. I know ColourPop's been doing one, and I have been buying the palettes out of nostalgia, but I'm gonna be brutally honest, Glamlight did it way better. Okay, next is a palette from a brand I tried for the first time last year, and this is the Glamatrix Barely Basic palette. This is fantastic. So first of all, the packaging, beautiful. Also very much reminds me of fall. The color story though, this is the definition of a fall color story. We have these sort of berry purples, we have some oranges, we have some greens, and we have some browns that are a little bit more cool leaning. And I love that the way they've arranged the color story in columns like this, so you can really just follow the column. If that's what you want to do, you can of course mix and match, but I typically just stick with the columns. So for each color you get 3 different mattes, and then you get these gorgeous metallics, which much like the Glamlight are so creamy and not flaky. And then this top row is these gorgeous white looking topper shades, but they're not actually as white as they look. They really add a shift to the look. And each of these white shades have a tint of whatever row they're coming from. So they add the most beautiful iridescent shift to the lids. This palette is fantastic. This formula is gorgeous. I cannot wait to try more from Glamatrix. This formula just completely surprised me, and I think this is so beautiful. You can get the most shifty looks with this. This palette I've thought about so many times throughout the year, but every time I look at it, all I can think about is fall. So I have set it aside for this time of year, and I am absolutely ready to dig right in. The next palette is from Alter Ego, and this is their Mirage palette. Now this is supposed to be Alter Ego's kind of take on the Huda Beauty Empowered palette. Now they do create alternatives to super high-end expensive palettes at an affordable price point. So I believe they did send me this one, but I really love it. I originally skipped the Huda Beauty Empowered because when I looked at the color story, I did not think I would like it, but then I got this in and I played with it and I realized this is actually a very palatable color story. First of all, the background makes it look much more intense. This black background can definitely make everything look a little bit more grungy. Now you do get some grungy tones over here. You do get these deeper purples and deeper browns, but you do get some softer orange, warm, toasty tones down here as well. You do get, of course, these yellow golds, which aren't my personal favorite, but are still very pretty. And of course, you do get these berry purples. They did also try to recreate the textures in the Huda palettes, and I think they did a very good job. So there is this shade here, which is like a metallic, but it's got this sort of cream to it as well. So it's meant to look very wet, and they did such a good job. This shade is gorgeous. And they did also add in the 2 cream shades that are in the Huda palettes. I don't get a lot of use out of the cream shades just because I never like when brands do this, but they did do a really good job recreating everything. One thing I will mention is when it comes to Alter Ego, they tend to rearrange the shades in the palette so that it actually makes more sense and is a little bit easier to figure out what you want to do. And it's just a little bit more visually appealing. So I think they've done a great job with this one. The formula of Alter Ego is so good, especially for such an affordable brand. They've done such a good job with this. I do love this color story. I think it's so pretty and very, very much makes me think of fall. It is definitely on that warmer, grungier side, and I do love it. The formula is truly fantastic. But speaking of Huda Beauty, I also pulled out the Pretty Grunge palette from 2 years ago. This is probably one of my absolute favorite palettes from Huda Beauty, just because when I initially look at it, it does look very, very grungy. But again, it's very palatable if you were to imagine these shades on a more white background as opposed to this black background. It definitely makes everything look a little grungier. So once again, we do have these deeper, grungier tones. Here it's particularly in the middle. We have these softer shades for more transitions. We do have this really pretty metallic brown. We do have some of these deep, grungy purples as well. We have a matte black. We do have sort of like a cream black as well, but it's very, very oily. I don't like this one and I can't see myself ever using it, but the rest of the shades in the palette are so good that I actually am willing to overlook this. This shade right here is like a very highly foiled shade, and it's got sort of elements of green, purple, silver to it. So it really is very dependent on what color is underneath. This is a beautiful, beautiful palette. I created so many fun looks with this. I love the high shine. I love how I can go very soft, but I can deepen it up as well. I just think this palette is beautiful. And again, it looks much more intimidating than it is because of that black background, but getting into these grungier tones, fall is definitely the time when I want to do that. So I am so excited to get into this, especially because you can create purple, silver, you can stay neutral brown, but I love the options in here. I love the color stories. It allows you to branch out from those more just super warm browns, but you can still go grungy and feel very, very fall. And the last two palettes, no surprise, are from Natasha Denona. Now the first one she came out with a couple of years ago, and this is the My Dream palette. And this is kind of in a similar line of the Pretty Grunge palette, in that it does have this darker background, so it ends up looking so much grungier, but we have these deeper purples. We have some of these warm browns, some of these golds as well, but we also have some very soft shades to pull everything together. We have an excellent black in here. I love this color story for this reason. Again, it's just grungy enough to be perfect for fall, but it's not so grungy that it feels difficult to wear. I just think this is such a pretty palette, and I love that you have those options. If you want to be a little bit more neutral, if you want to be warm, if you want to go for purple, I think that's gorgeous as well. This is a really beautiful palette. For some reason, this isn't the Natasha palette I reach for the most. I do definitely leave this one for fall. I don't tend to reach for it during the rest of the year. I am really funny that way with my palettes. I really do have palettes that for me are a certain time of year only. But also this shade here in the bottom corner, this is like a fuchsia but with a green shift. It is such an interesting duochromatic shade. It's beautiful. So I think if you have this one, now is a great time to dig it out. And finally, the palette that I've been reaching for a lot lately, that I loved from the beginning, but all of a sudden I've rediscovered it and I'm in love with it all over again. This is the I Need a Warm palette. So this is of course going to give us our toasty warm browns. But my favorite thing about this palette is that it is warm without being orange, because sometimes you want those warm tones, you want to just embrace that warmth, but you don't want to be orange. And most commonly those warm tones do have an orange element to them, but this one is just so good. You do have this shade up here, which has almost like a reddish shift to it, but this palette really is just a stunning brown color story. It's easy to wear, it's easy to reach for. You do get this shade if you are wanting to get into that overly warm reddish type of shade, but otherwise the rest of these shades just play so beautifully together. They'll give you those warm toasty looks without being orange. These look stunning with blue eyes. That is part of the reason why I love it. I do have blue eyes and I do like to play that up from time to time, and I don't really love orange eyeshadows. I don't love orange in general, so I love going for this for those warm toasty looks without an orange kind of element to it. I love that we have some of these sparkling foils in here. I love all of the different textures. There's not one bad shade in this entire palette, and this is another one that's great for any time of year, but especially for fall, because right now is when I'm feeling those toastier looks. So let me know down below all of your thoughts. What are your palettes that you're most excited to reach for this coming fall? What makeup in general are you most excited to reach for this fall? I just love hearing from you guys so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.